Whoops. Hello out there. We're on the air. I started the show without my video on there. Anyways, good morning, everybody. I think we're here. I'm just putting out a post on Nostr here right now. I should usually just do this before I start the show, but I'm usually halfway through it and then do something else, and then we go live. Oh, yeah, here we go. We're live. We are back. Here we go. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, zap.stream. It appears as though I got some of my voice back. I was doing some clips yesterday and I didn't realize how bad my voice sounded. But anyways, that's the price of having fun, I guess you might say. A little bit of a headache and a bad voice. So it's not bad. It's just kind of tough. Tough to speak. We got a good show today, though. I'll tell you that. Some days I'm preparing for the show and I'm not really sure how it's going to go. Got some stuff to talk about, some news to catch up on. But hopefully, it usually just works out. But then some days I have this in my head, kind of map the whole thing out and what I want to get across. And today is one of those days. We're talking about the end of centralization. And this is stemmed from a couple things that happened yesterday that I saw last night and kind of a few themes that I've kind of been operating on within the show. So a couple different things. But first, let's check with zap.stream. We got Letha over there and we got Zombie. Jose just zapped 121 sats. Good morning. Thank you, my friend. And we got Tommy D over on YouTube. We got Nimlord and Tommy D again. A couple Tommy D's in the house. How many Tommy D's can we have in the same chat? The only thing that would be better if you jumped over to zap.stream. Adrian, good morning, my friend. Okay, let's get to this because we got a lot to get through. I'll start with the metrics like we usually do. But by the way, this is the daily Bitcoin journey. If this is your first time watching the show, welcome. There's been a bunch of new faces in the chat. Although the price of Bitcoin has been going down, and it's funny, the views, the new subscribers, the action on this channel has a direct correlation with the price of Bitcoin. And I think that's kind of normal within the Bitcoin industry for products, downloads, everything is tied to the price of Bitcoin, which is pretty unfortunate because as we know, the price in US dollars is pretty much a complete illusion. So we do know that everything over time is going to continue falling against Bitcoin, but it's still ups and downs, part of the whole journey here. So Zombie says number go up, which I learned that last week, I think on the show. NGU is the biggest driver, but that's okay. We still got a heck of a turnout here today for the price of Bitcoin tumbling down last night. AD is here. Good morning, my friend. And Daniel, good afternoon. It's pretty early here. I don't know where you're at, but it's pretty early here. Pretty foggy here this morning. It was kind of eerie almost, but anyways, let's get to the show. Let's get shit rolling here. What I was getting at there, and I don't know if I said this, I was watching Citadel Dispatch last week, and Odell had his theme song that he always starts the show with, his little song there, and he played it, and then he introduced whoever he was talking to, and then he said, "Oh, I forgot to do the intro music," so he ran the intro music again, not knowing that he actually had already done it. But that's what happens sometimes when you're doing a live show. It's different. And unless you've ever done a live show on the internet, it's tough to understand. But anyways, this is the daily Bitcoin journey. I don't think I got to this point, but what I was going to say is this is actionable and logical discussion for Bitcoiners and for future Bitcoiners. So that's what we're doing here today. Leon from Germany. Good morning. I saw a tweet. I know that it's probably complete bullshit, but I saw a tweet this morning saying that 86% of Germans are in favor of a CBDC. And maybe Leon, hands on the ground or feet on the ground, not hands, hopefully not hands, feet on the ground in Germany, can report on that. 86% of Germans are in favor of a CBDC. I highly doubt it, but that's what was the report out of Bitcoin News this morning. Obviously not their data, but somebody's getting that data, probably from their imagination. Daniel's in Vienna. That's right. I knew that. Jason, good morning, my friend. Okay, here's the situation of the Bitcoin blockchain right now. We're currently at block height 841,513. 841,000 blocks have been mined. Every time a new block is mined, new Bitcoin are created. That's how it works. And I think that, I say this all the time, but I probably sound like a broken record sometimes, but at the same time, there's always going to be new people watching the show. And I spent quite a bit of time in Bitcoin before understanding how this whole thing really works and how Bitcoin are created. I definitely got into it for the decentralization aspect of it. I understood that, and the number was going up. So that's why I got into it, but I didn't fully understand how this whole thing works. And so what I'm actually going to do today, if I remember, a couple weeks ago, I did a full show on a Bitcoin transaction. I think I called it how and why Bitcoin works. So it was great. It was about an hour and 20 minutes long. It was very stressful for me, but we went through a Bitcoin transaction from start to finish. We had it on the Sparrow wallet. We sent it to another address and we watched it. We followed it right here on the mempool.space. And so I actually had to, if you haven't watched it yet and you're somebody who's kind of new to Bitcoin, I highly recommend watching that. And you can always use that as a really good resource in the future when you do go to send Bitcoin. Because most people get into Bitcoin, they buy it, it's on the exchange, they send it to their wallet, but they never have to deal with Bitcoin transaction fees because most exchanges offer free withdrawals. So I'm going to try, if I remember, I'm going to put a link in the description. You can find everything about me, everything you need to know in the description every day, but I'm going to put that at the top. And if I forget to, you can just search the channel. It's called How and Why Bitcoin Works. That's okay. Here we go. So as I was just talking about, I saw a survey of 86% of Germans were okay with CBDCs. And Leon here, who's from Germany, says, I think most of the people here don't even know what a CBDC is. So they probably, that's how those surveys work, all the data that they collect. They interview about 100 people. Half of them are probably paid by the governing body. And they report these results as if they just want to convince everybody that it's normal. They want to normalize things. And that's a good example of that. Good morning, Johnny. Okay, so that's where we are. We got 19 sats per VByte. That means every time you send a Bitcoin transaction, it's basically just data. And the more data you have within that transaction, the more of a fee you're going to pay. So we're going to talk about UTXOs today to start the show because there was 2 questions on the YouTube channel this morning. And I think it's always a good time to talk about UTXOs because most people are unfamiliar with them. So today I would say that if you're transacting, it is a good day to be transacting in Bitcoin. 19 sats per VByte. Okay, and the price today, 61,000. So she's dropped. Let's look at April 30th. April. Okay, so it's not, I mean, it's going up and down. Leading up to the halving, it got up a little bit, 65, 66. But anyways, we're at 61,000 bucks. Like I said, it is not even close to the most important metric in Bitcoin, the price in US dollars, but we're at 61,000 today. 1 year ago today, you could have purchased one Bitcoin for 29,000. And 4 years ago, you could have got one for 8,600. And you notice this little green button here that says yes. And the reason I put that there is because one of the theories in Bitcoin, it's not really a theory, it's reality of Bitcoin, is that if you buy Bitcoin and you hold on to that, if you get through one full Bitcoin cycle, 4 years, you're never going to lose any money. You haven't historically. So that's what this is saying. That means that 4 years ago, when the price was 8,600, if you would have bought it then and held on to today, you're way up. But historically, if you've ever bought Bitcoin and you've waited for 4 years, you've never been down. That's an important metric that a lot of people don't understand. And I think that people who are getting into Bitcoin should always have that longer term focus of getting through one Bitcoin cycle, which kind of destroys the whole mainstream narrative around Bitcoin, which they accuse Bitcoin of being a get rich quick scheme. So Moscow time today, I don't think this is accurate, but it's about 1,600, maybe 1,650 today, 1,620, which is the amount of sats that you'll get for $1 US. So the higher that number, the better it is to be buying because you're getting more sats for your dollar. So I would be lying if I said that I didn't buy a little bit of Bitcoin this morning. Unless the government's listening. The price here in Canada today is 83,859 Canadian dollars. And the Moose Jaw time, which is the equivalent of $1 Canadian, that'll get you more than this now. Let's get this updated to legit. Okay, $1. Well, how many sats? I'm going to guess 1185, 1191. So as those go up, it's a better time to buy. As they go down, we get richer. So Bitcoin's really a win-win, in my personal opinion. Where are we here? Okay, let's get this off the screen. Brennan says 86% of stats are made up. That is true. That is accurate. I will verify that. And Jason says it's persuasion. It's what it is. That's what happened in 2020 with the big illness of 2020. They just wanted you to make you feel like you were alone, even though there was a lot of people out there who thought the exact same way. They went on and on and on and just put out all this bullshit until they convinced people that unless you were going along with their scheme, you were a minority. You were alone. So it's persuasion. It's exactly what it is. Also known as bullshit, propaganda. Pal, good morning, my friend. I reckon the government is going to invent some insane crisis to coerce people into CBDCs. The pressure will be real. Yep, no doubt about that. Zero doubt about that. But what we're going to be talking about today during the show, the end of centralization, is why it's not going to work. Why won't that work? It'll work for a while. It might convince some people to adopt their slave coins, but over time, we're already moving through this transition of centralization, heavily centralized world, into a decentralized world. It just takes time. So let's over in zap.stream, we got some action here. We got Ballsy Golf says, let's see if Hong Kong goes all in for Bitcoin today. Zombie says, who would have thought 60K would feel this bad? Truly amazing. No doubt. It's all perception. Everything in life is perception. Ballsy Golf says the corporate media here or Germany will lie about CBDCs and its benefits and not the drawbacks, just like the jabs. Yes. And My Path to Fire, good morning. 69 sats zapped over there. Thank you, my friend. And this next part here Zombie says the corporate media are sellout shills. So I saw a video today. I was going to show it, but I don't think it's really productive to be showing it. But I think it was the creator of OnlyFans. She was talking about how the Biden administration was paying ads for her to talk about politics and supporting the Democrats. And they told her specifically that she couldn't mention that it was actually an ad. So the Biden administration was literally funding this TikTok account, the creator of OnlyFans, and telling her to promote their government, promote their policies, promote the things that they're doing. And she wasn't allowed to talk about it because it wasn't a product. So that was the last election. I'm sure it's gonna get 10 times worse this time around. But anyways, that's part of the whole thing here. 60% of the time, I'm right every time. Works every time. Daddy-O says, how is little Castro still in charge? That's a good question. Every day I wake up, I ask the same thing. But the nice thing for me, and one thing that's really helped, honestly, is staying off of Twitter. The less I have to hear from him, the less I have to see his stupid face, the less I have to, every time I go onto Twitter, my blood pressure just goes through the roof. And so you go on to nostr and there's none of that. There's the occasional thing if it's like really important news in terms of politics. But other than that, it's just a bunch of people helping each other, building things, finding ways to improve things. And nostr is going to be on the agenda today. My Path to Fire says, who is little Castro? That is Justin Trudeau. And I'm sure if I say too much on here, I might be imprisoned at this point. Just kidding. Canada and the US are going through the same kind of thing right now. But the thing is we will get through it for sure because the world is decentralizing. So let's start with the daily block reward today. This one just came in. We got a couple actually. We're going to go through the first comment here, and then I'm going to talk about two things in utxos, which are important. Two questions on here. So the first one was from Jas Singh, and this was this morning, probably about 15 minutes ago. So he made today's daily block reward. And he says, first time watching your channel, excellent and informative. Great job. Thank you, my friend. Maybe he's here this morning. Who knows? But anyways, something positive to start the day. Thank you for that nice comment. And it's always nice to start the day with some positivity. So let's get to these questions here. Because this week, as we'll find out, is going to be a little bit different for me than usual. So I want to do some questions today instead of on Thursday. So the first question here was from Prawn. What should be a good UTX size for long-term holding? And I'm glad that he clarified that, because the thing about UTXOs is there is no perfect size of UTXOs. It's different for everybody, depending on how long your time frame is, depending on what you're going to be spending your Bitcoin on. What should be a good UTXO size? The one thing I would say is that anytime you're moving, if you have a chance, so let's say that you're somebody who buys Bitcoin on a regular basis from Bull Bitcoin, or let's use ShakePay here because they're a little bit different wallets. I'm going to go through both here, but let's say you use a normal exchange like ShakePay where you can actually buy the Bitcoin on the exchange and then you can hold it there for a little while. So if you're somebody who is buying, let's say $100 every week, every time you move that Bitcoin off of the exchange, off of ShakePay into your wallet, that's one UTXO. Okay. So what I would suggest there is just hold on to that for a little while. I mean, the first thing we're taught in Bitcoin is to never leave your money or your Bitcoin on the exchanges, but that doesn't factor in the UTXOs here. So what I would say for that, for long-term holding or for like any kind of holding, I would probably let that get to about 250,000, 300,000 ish sats before you move it off there. And if you are somebody who's been doing this for a while and you've been doing it wrong, it's okay. Like you're still going to be able to fix it for not a huge penalty. So what I would suggest there, if you are somebody who has been doing that, dollar cost averaging, frequently buying Bitcoin, small amounts of Bitcoin, and moving it into a wallet, wait until the fees get low, probably around 10 sats per VByte or lower, and we'll get there. You just have to have some patience. We're at 19 sats per VByte right now, but wait till it gets low and then just move them all into one wallet, one new address. And when you do that, it's just going to create one new UTXO there, and then you don't have to worry about it. But I would say in terms of like optimal size, I'd go at least 250,000, 300,000 sats. That's what I would suggest. And if you're thinking something longer term, maybe 1 million sats, that's probably going to be good, because you do have to factor in here, the only time this is going to matter is when you go to spend that Bitcoin. So let's say that you waited 10, 15, longer term here, 20 years to spend that. That means that as long as your purchase is less than 1 million sats, you're only going to pay one fee for that, right? And that's essentially how it works, because it'll just take one fee out of that. And so if you had a bunch of different UTXOs in there and you wanted to spend 1 million sats, you'd have to pay fees for every single piece of data in that transaction, every UTXO. So it'd be incredibly expensive. And depending on how you're spending it, if you have to spend it right away, if it's urgent in terms of time, then you don't really have time to wait for a lower fee, and you have to pay, and you're going to pay a shitload of fees on that. So this definitely is something that you need to be thinking about at any stage of your Bitcoin journey here. But the one thing to keep in mind here is that if you have kind of screwed this up and you have a bunch of UTXOs, you can still fix it pretty easily. You just have to have some patience. And the one thing I would say is that if you are somebody who doesn't know how many UTXOs you have within your wallet, I would download the Sparrow wallet on desktop and go to sparrowwallet.com, I think. I better not. I better give you the right address here, because this is something that you can't really just screw up. Sparrow Wallet. So yeah, sparrowwallet.com/download. And from there, you get it for your desktop. You import your 12 words into the Sparrow Wallet, and you can see if the wallet was compatible with whatever BIP it was. You can actually see all your UTXOs in there. And I'm pretty sure, from what I've heard from people, is that it works really well. I haven't heard of too many wallets that you'd be migrating from that doesn't work there. So that's what I would say on that. You can always check your UTXOs using the Sparrow wallet. It is the most functional wallet out there. My path to fire, this is a great question. Says, how many sats are safe to leave on a Lightning wallet? And a good transition to this next question too. But what I would say to that is, like with Lightning, you have to keep in mind that it's all hot. All Lightning is kept online. When you move it to a cold storage device, that's when they're actually taken off of the online, taken off the internet. So what I would say to that is, like, think of your Lightning wallet as, if you're just out and about, think of that as if it's your wallet and you're going out for a night out, to the club, to a concert, like the concert I was at the other night with like 7 people at it. But that's how much sats you'd want to have in there, an amount that you'd be comfortable losing, right? Just because they are online, they're more risky to hold. But for the most part, if you do it properly, if you're using the right wallet, they're fine. But I would say, like, say you have $200 of cash in your wallet when you go out, that's the equivalent I would be using for Bitcoin, in a hot wallet or Lightning wallet. So this next part here, the next question ties into that perfectly. And let me find this question. So this one's a little bit longer, but it's important for people. Okay, so here's the question. And this is from Eduardo. And so the question is, does the UTXO problem come up with the transfer from the exchange to the hot wallet, or the transfer from the hot wallet to the cold wallet? And don't get too overwhelmed here with all these different terms and stuff, but he says, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but I suppose, or I don't know if I'm wrong, but I suppose that if I get $100 in purchases every week and transfer each one individually into the cold wallet, that would be a problem. Yes. But if I, let's say, transfer the total at the end of the month directly into the cold wallet, that would be okay. Yes, that's exactly what I was saying there. Wait until you have, say, 250,000 sats, 300,000 sats, then move it off the exchange into your cold storage. But then he says, but what about transferring each $100 into a hot wallet and then transfer the whole amount from hot to cold wallet? Yes, also another option. So you have two kind of options there, what I would say. The first one is if you're using an exchange like ShakePay, where they don't have Lightning withdrawals, but you can hold the Bitcoin on there. Wait until that balance is high enough and then move it. Wait until you have 250,000 sats at least, and then move it to cold storage. But until then, leave it on your exchange. If you're using a service like Bolt Bitcoin, which I recommend more than anybody else here in Canada, and if you don't have Bolt Bitcoin, I have a referral link in the description. Use that. I think you get $25 for the free Bitcoin. But with Bolt Bitcoin, you can actually you can withdraw to Bitcoin, you can withdraw to Lightning, or you can withdraw to Liquid. And so you're going to be doing the exact same thing there. You're going to let that build up to an amount, let's say 250,000 sats, 300,000 sats, and then you're going to migrate that into your cold wallet, which will create one UTXO. So that's what I would say there. And make sure you're using a Lightning wallet like Phoenix or like Mutiny or like, I think non-kyc's another decent one, where you can actually hold your backup phrase to it. Wallet of Satoshi, you don't hold any keys to it. You're kind of at the mercy of them. But if you're using a good hot wallet, that's a really good way to do it. So basically the flow of that would look like a couple things there. A couple things I would say, because if you go into the ShakePay route, if you're going to be just letting your balance build up on there, you have a risk that you could lose those funds to ShakePay. That's your risk there. But the benefit is that when you do move that off of ShakePay, you're not paying any fees, and then you have your UTXO there. So you're not paying any transaction fees on that. But if you're using the Bull Bitcoin route where you buy using Lightning and you let that balance build up until you consolidate, then you're going to be paying a fee to move from Lightning to on-chain. So there is a fee there, but you don't have the risk of somebody else holding it for you. So those are the two trade-offs there. Personally, I would lean towards using Bull Bitcoin for that. Because at the same time, you might not end up migrating those down the road. You could use those Lightning purchases for something else without paying any fees on it. So that's what I would say. That's my UTXO summary for the day. I hope that helps. Like I said, it is a very important aspect of Bitcoin that I think is often overlooked. And so something to consider there. My Path to Fire says, I have LB. It's not self-custody. I don't know. Is it? I thought LB had the 12 words on there. I don't know. I think you're right, but I don't know. I feel like you can back it up still. But anyways, let's move on here. Oh, what did I do? Clicked an ad by accident. Okay, let's check on the chat here because I was going on for a little while there. Aiden, end of centralized medicine is over and done if you care about your health. I think that, and what I'm going to talk about here is that every aspect of centralization is actually coming to an end, including pharmaceutical companies, including corporate structures, including social media, and of course, our money. So Rick, have you smashed the like yet? That's a good question. Have you? I can't see how many likes are in here. It doesn't update for me, but if you haven't yet, we would appreciate it. The thing about this show and, answering questions like this, it's a very unique show. And I haven't found a lot of channels or shows that, have a live chat kind of going as the show goes on. We can just ask questions and stuff. I don't know. So I feel like I'm providing pretty good value to people here in terms of Bitcoin. And I understand that, if you don't want to check out zap.stream, if you don't want to send sats on there, the easiest way and the best way that you can support the show is just by liking, by leaving a comment after the show. I don't know how much it does, but it definitely helps. So that's what I would say. And I appreciate everybody very much who has been doing that. Pal says, never thought I'd say it, but I like a politician, RFK Jr. Interesting. I'm not sure about him. I'm not sure about any politicians, to be honest with you, but that's your opinion. Jason says the Hong Kong spot ETFs brought in 11 million first day, not 200 million. It sounds like it was kind of a bust. And that was one of my news things today. I thought it was less than 11 million, but it might be over now. China's broke. Yeah, I think that they do things a little bit differently over in China. From what I understand, I have very limited knowledge on China, but it sounds like only specific segments of the population can actually access the ETF. But my thoughts on that would be it's probably the people with the wealth who can access it. So that's who we'd be focused on anyways. So, but the thing with the ETFs, the thing with everything is that nothing happens overnight. It's not one day everything's going to happen. The Hong Kong, just because they had a shitty day one, that has no future impact of what's going to come here. None. Elvio, good morning. Good morning. Bren says, the problem is when you wish to consolidate UTXOs, but you don't want to be generating new seed phrases. So the one thing with that is you actually don't have to generate a new seed phrase. So if you're using any wallet really, but I like to use Sparrow Wallet myself. I can't get over how bad my voice is here. It's just like I'm out of breath every time I speak. So you actually don't have to create a new seed phrase every time. All you have to do is just take those, set up a send transaction and generate one of your new receive addresses. And the Sparrow Wallet will actually know that you're consolidating it, and it'll just charge you a fee for the transaction. So you don't have to spin up a new seed phrase. You can just create a transaction, send it from get all your UTXOs in there, put max balance, and then send it to a new address. And that'll consolidate it for you into a new UTXO, into a new address. You don't need a new wallet for that. BTC Backpacker, good morning, my friend. Adam, good morning. And Phoenix is done in the US. Yes, very unfortunate news there. Okay, so let's keep things rolling here. I think that was all I had for UTXOs. Pal says, what do you think about using a password manager to store private keys? Asking for a friend. Never. Yesterday on the show, we talked about your stages of storing your backup phrase. And the first stage should be, or a stage you never want to be in, is anything digital. So you never want to have your backup phrase on your phone. You never want to have your backup phrase on your computer, in a password manager, nothing digital, ever. And what I would suggest there actually is when you're writing down your private key is hide your camera. Who knows? You have to be as paranoid as possible. And even if nothing could ever come of that, it's always better to be on the side of cautious. Because who knows? Who knows who's watching through your phone? Who knows who's watching through your webcam? And definitely never say your private key out loud. If you're trying to memorize your private key or something, do not ever say it out loud. Because this little guy here is always listening to you. And yes, the chances of that are extremely low. But if you can mitigate those risks at all, why wouldn't you? So keep it on a piece of paper first, but we all know how shitty paper is. It can be lost. It can be burnt. It can be damaged through water, anything. It can be picked up by your kid, eaten by your dog. So get it off of paper and put it onto steel as soon as you can. If you have any sort of significant Bitcoin balance, order a steel plate and just get it done. And I'm going to talk about that here kind of at the end of the show. Plan for that, but that's my That's my thoughts on it. Daddio says, how does Fountain pay rewards? It seems sporadic. It is. It's very sporadic. And so what you do with Fountain is you just log on there, you start listening to a podcast, and you can click the little earning thing there, and it says how many sats you're going to be earning that day. So some days you might get 1 sat per minute for 10 minutes. The last couple of days I've been getting like 3 or 4 sats per minute for 60 minutes. So I got like 240 sats yesterday for listening to a podcast. Pretty good. I think that if you're not on Fountain, if you're not taking advantage of those free sats, you're missing out. RFK Jr. sucks. we got some disagreements in the chat this morning. That's okay. Debate's always good. My Path to Fire. Thank you, my friend. Zap 21 sats. Appreciate you making these shows and sharing helpful info for Bitcoiners. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, we're all just nodes in the Bitcoin network. It's all we are. And our job is to push this thing forward as best we can. Give people the best news, or not news, but information as possible, and let them make their own decisions. And thank you, pal. Appreciate that. You're providing great value, Jor. I think you'll need an assistant soon to keep up with the feed. Well, if anybody wants to volunteer, fortunately, YouTube doesn't pay much, so might be for the love of Bitcoin. But anyways, let's keep her moving here. So first of all, I wanted to give a shout out to Crypto Heathen, and for the first time, maybe ever, I haven't seen him this morning, but I'm sure he'll watch it, and maybe if not, I'll give him a shove over in the group chat to check it out. But this is what I came across yesterday, or this morning, one of the two. So it looks like Crypto Heathen had a tweet yesterday. I don't know what he's doing, still using Twitter. But he tweeted a quote from Software. So you can see it at the bottom there. And it looks like Jason Lowery quote tweeted him. So he had a quote here from Software, the book, Crypto Heathen, one of our now celebrities within the chat every morning. But Jason Lowery retweeted or quote tweeted him. And this is what he says. No matter how much people take pride in creating energy efficient and peaceful power structures codified by laws or code, history shows that these systems are often dysfunctional and unable to sustain a secure society over the long term. Inevitably, societies must resort to using physical power to protect their property and interests. This holds true in cyberspace, where laws are embedded in software just as it does in every other domain. So that's pretty cool. It looks like Jason Lowery has since deleted that tweet, but somebody grabbed a screenshot of it. So I wanted to give a shout out to Crypto Heathen there. Pretty cool. And one thing I'll say on that is that if you are somebody, like, it's kind of cool, Twitter getting quote tweeted from Lowery. But one thing I'll say about nostr is that if you do want to get in touch with somebody in Bitcoin, let's say it's Jeff Booth, Matt Odell, Marty Bent. I don't know if he replies much or not, but Gigi, kind of like the Bitcoiners that most people know. The best way to do that by far is nostr. That's how you're going to get a hold of them, because there's such few people there. There's much more signal there than there is noise. And if you are somebody who's wanting to get in touch with anybody with relevance in Bitcoin, use nostr for that. Okay, so this was the second piece of news here from Bitcoin News this morning. Big shout out to Bitcoin News for the sponsor of the show, for supporting a small Bitcoin channel like the Bitcoin Journey. If you didn't have a chance yet, make sure to check out Bitcoin News Twitter feed. They did one on how government is trying to destroy Bitcoin right now yesterday. And last week they did one on the DAO of Bitcoin, talking about how more Bitcoin is than just a currency, and how the philosophy, the religious parts of it. Very good episode. I listened to about half it, but it's on their Bitcoin News Twitter feed. So if you have some time today, check that out. But this is Hong Kong, news out of Hong Kong this morning. It says Hong Kong ETF saw an abysmal 8.5 million in combined trading volume on day one of their launch. This is in comparison to 655 million in the first day volume for the US-based Bitcoin ETFs. So, a couple things on that I would say, because there's two things here. You always have to admit when you're wrong, and you always have to take pride when you're right. And people get confused with that. I don't think people admit they're wrong enough, and I don't think people take pride in themselves enough. People call that cocky or big-headed, whatever you want to call it. But it's important because it confirms your thoughts on things. When you have an opinion on something, hopefully you put in some sort of work, especially if you're right about it. And you should be rewarded for that, in my opinion. So with this, I underestimated how much the Hong Kong ETFs were going to have, but this is day one. So even though I was wrong, I thought that there would be much higher than this. This is day one, and who knows what will happen tomorrow? Who knows what will happen next week? Very early. You can never judge anything based off of such a short time frame. So that's what I would say on this. Hong Kong ETFs appear to be a flop this morning. And you know what? I'm sure there's people watching the show who are happy about that. Even though the price is going to suffer a little bit, maybe short term, the less Bitcoin in the hands of these people, the better, I think. So ETFs are great if you got money in the old system, but if you can, you always want to self-custody your Bitcoin. Number one. Sailor, another 122 Bitcoin. I forget what the total value of this was. A couple million. No, how much would that be? 100, probably 10 million. I don't know. Somebody in the chat will know. Anyways, he's buying, he's not stopping, which is good, I think. I don't know. Here's the thing. No, people have opinions on Sailor. People have opinions on the ETFs. The thing about Bitcoin is that it's for everybody. We can't tell Sailor he can't buy any more Bitcoin. We can't tell the Hong Kong ETFs they should be buying more Bitcoin. Everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. That's kind of the famous quote within Bitcoin. And anybody can buy it. So my opinion on who owns Bitcoin and who doesn't is completely irrelevant and a complete waste of time. Some cool news to share. Also from Bitcoin News. A solo Bitcoin miner solves block number 841286. So let's copy that. And for those maybe unfamiliar with the solo mining, let's check this out. Let's see what it says here. Oh, there you go. So you can see, you just copy and paste the block head into this mempool space is incredible. You can look at any transaction, any block, anything you want. So this was 2 days ago, I guess, November 28th. You can see the fees. You can see the total subsidy and fee. So this solo miner here, says the miner, earned 3.4 Bitcoin worth $218,000 US for mining that block. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, because the thing you have to keep in mind here is that if you are Bitcoin mining, you have kind of two options there. So the first route you can take is solo mining. That's who solved this block. And the second avenue you can take is pool mining. So with the solo mining, basically you're hooking up your miner, you're connecting it to the Bitcoin network, and you're trying to guess the next equation. And if you solve that block reward, if you solve the equation, you get the Bitcoin, in this case, 3.4 Bitcoin. So it's more like a lottery ticket. That's how you should be thinking about solo mining. With the pool mining, you have much more consistent revenue coming in because you're hooked up to a pool. So every time that pool gets Bitcoin, you get a part of that. There's a couple different ways, and this is something I just learned about within the pools, is that there's a couple different ways they structure the payouts. One's fixed and one's kind of variable based on the actual block rewards received. But you have a much higher chance of getting Bitcoin from that. So pool mining is more consistent, but lower. Bitcoin. Obviously, if your pool miner got 3.4, yours would be split out by how many shares you had in that pool based on how much power, how much electricity you contributed to the pool. With solo mining, you don't have anybody else there. So if you actually win that block, you get all that Bitcoin yourself. So it's much more risky. You could probably go 5 years without hitting a block or more, maybe 50 years. But if you do hit a block, you get all the Bitcoin. So kind of cool there. And you can actually find smaller miners now, like specifically for solo mining for like $50, $100, very low energy, very low cost. But there is a chance that you hit a block and win 3.4 Bitcoin there. In this case, that's what it was. If that happened 1 month ago, they would have got 6 Bitcoin for that, at least. Okay, so this next one I was going to share, but I think that this is probably too much now, 45 minutes in. Got a couple things to talk about here. Let's watch this because this is a really good, a very well done video. And so this is from Bitcoin News again. I'm going to have to take it off the screen here. But let's just take a little break here. Let's see what's going on in the chats. Because I plan on doing a shorter show today, and every time I plan on doing that, it's always a long show. So we might be going in over an hour today, but that's okay. Aiden says, we will have no politicians in the future. Look at countries like Lebanon. They are doing fine without a centralized figure. This is our future. I agree with that. I really do. I really do. And I was hoping to talk about that today. But Brennan says, password managers are honeypots constantly getting poked. Yes. Adam says, I'm a little bit behind on episodes, but all 8 seasons of Mr. D are on Amazon Prime. In the States. In the States. It's not in Canada here, which doesn't make any fucking sense. The show, it's a Canadian show, one of the best Canadian shows ever. And Canadians can't watch it on Amazon Prime. That's the how stupid the world is. That's centralized world, full force. Daniel says, looked into super backs for private keys. I've never heard of that one. I've never heard of that one. What is it? Is it like an app or is it hopefully it's not an app. Johnny says, was that block solved by Jetson Mining? So here on that, before we watch this video, I'll quickly touch on that. Because we have our Living in the Future tier, and I strongly encourage you check that out. We do a couple shows every week talking about just different things within Bitcoin, advanced topics within Bitcoin. So if you're somebody who wants to be a little bit more serious about Bitcoin, that's number 1, becoming better Bitcoiners. Number 2 is building businesses in Bitcoin and earning sats. So within that group, within Living in the Future group, we have Jetson Media, we have Jetson Mining. Both are kind of work in progress, but we're working towards it. And so there's about, I don't know how many people would be in there, maybe 10 people who are interested in kind of pooling together some money and going in on some miners and learning how to do all that, just kind of in a group setting. I think it's much less intimidating in a group setting when you have other people there to help you out instead of trying to figure it out yourself. So we're going to be doing some solo mining. We're going to hopefully be doing some pool mining in the future. Check out the Living in the Future tier. You can find it in the description below there. You can do 7 days for free. We can get in touch, see what you're looking for, and if there's any use, if it's any use to you. So that's what I would say. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this video. Oh, wrong one. So I did want to share this morning. We got a couple videos to watch here. So hopefully you can stick around for the next 20 minutes or so, but this is going to be the best 20 minutes of the show. So let's watch this. This is Bitcoin News sent Jordan Herbs to El Salvador's largest gathering of Bitcoiners to find out what motivates them to be part of this revolution. So this is part 1, 3 minutes long, but has some really good information and really good, just like, you'll see. Here we go.
What came from gold was central banks and essentially like political currency tokens, dollars.
How can companies be reporting earnings when they're closed. I didn't know anything about money, the economy, until I learned Bitcoin. Then I'm like, oh shit, that opened my eyes.
Some people just think it's about making money. We got to make changes so that humanity has a future.
If they're willing to sit down with a Bitcoiner and talk for 1 hour, they'll see we are radical because we are at war with evil.
They kept printing billions of dollars every single day. That was the moment where it finally clicked. We're not stopping this thing of printing money. We are never going to pay off our debts. It'll only grow bigger and bigger and larger until we go through hyperinflation.
It's unfair that there's a couple people, leads, that have the capacity to steal your energy. And all this misusage has allowed countries to create war.
We are right now fighting the most important revolution ever in mankind's history. We are moving monetary energy, economical energy, from something that essentially is funding evil. It's funding fake media, it's funding the military-industrial complex, it's funding big pharma.
Even people who are not Bitcoiners seem to know that money printing fiat is imprisoning people. It's a tool for control of people.
When you're living in the rat race in that 9 to 5, your mind kind of shuts down and it closes on only what you can do right now. And when you're here and you're with Bitcoiners, it starts to open back up again. You get that creativity back and you see what's possible. And that's what Bitcoin is allowing us to have.
It's engineered money. It's the first thing that was designed to be a money. And so now that you have this global decentralized monetary protocol that nobody can violate or confiscate.
We're talking about the solution to the human race, and you're talking about what's one problem in the world, that's the money problem.
Because if you know how money works, it doesn't work. In 2020, if you had $1, now it's 75 cents.
Bitcoin has that 21 million cap, and that was the switch that makes so much sense to me.
Most Bitcoiners, they have one mission in mind, the promise of a better future.
You know, printing fiat just because you feel like it from a situation that you created, that is over.
So Bitcoin is always that glue that brings everybody together, no matter what language you speak. You're always just like going at it.
Like I'm pinching myself, brother, to be here. This is history in real time.
It is definitely brings out a meaning of a peaceful revolution.
Freedom from tyranny.
I'm shorting the dollar and defunding evil, because central banking is evil.
The huge thing is trying to find out what is possible with Bitcoin and what's possible with our lives. We're going to push these limits further than we've ever seen. And that comes from Bitcoin, right? The freedom that it's given to us.
And once you realize how the system works against you, there's no going back to the system. And you will, if they teach it to kids, they will teach their parents and their grandparents.
All of us have been given a gift to have entered this industry early, and we're going to be asked to be responsible for the gift that we've been given. What are the spheres of influence that we're all called to bless?
Whatever it takes to make the changes we need, because we can't, it's unsustainable the way things are going.
It's about the people. We are connecting extremely fast because we want the good things for each other.
How good was that? That was very well done. Big shout out to Bitcoin News for putting that together. It said Swan at the top there, but I think it was Bitcoin News who did it. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Very, very good breakdown of Bitcoiners, what we're here for, what we're doing. And a couple things I saw there and noticed. I took some notes here. But I got 5 things here from that I wrote down. I watched that earlier this morning and I kind of thought the same thing. But 5 things. And I think that if the majority of people really understood the mission here and what Bitcoiners were actually doing versus what the news tells them that we're doing, 5 things here. So the one problem in the world is our money. Everything comes back to money. Every issue in the world, the core problem with that is the money. When you give a small group of people the ability to print money, society collapses. And that's what we're living through right now. So that's what a lot of people miss, is the one problem causing all of these issues is the money. And the second part of that is Bitcoiners, when you start talking with a Bitcoiner, it doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what country you're from. Everybody understands the mission here. Everybody is working towards the same goal. So languages are completely irrelevant. Everybody's working together on this. The third one here is central banking is evil. Central banking is evil. I know we've spent our whole life living in this system, and we never really knew what the central banks were until the last couple of years, for me anyways. But central banking is evil. We need to start, whenever we say central banking, we have to drive that point home. Evil. And there's no going back. I can't speak for everybody here, but for me personally, I'm going down with this ship. I am. And I've told that to some very close people in my life as of late. Because whenever there's certainty or uncertainty within things, people always have their doubts. People always ask questions. What if this? What if this? What if it fails? What if all this stuff happens? I'm telling you, I'm never going back to that system. Whatever that takes. If I have to pack up and move to a country who's more friendly than this place is, who's living on a Bitcoin standard like El Salvador is, I'll do it. I'm never going back to that system because it's complete bullshit. And the last thing here is that the world, the system that we're going through right now, that we're living in, is unsustainable. Debt-based fiat currency is unsustainable. And every time throughout history, every time there's been a fiat currency introduced into the world, it's failed because it's unsustainable. And so when you realize that, when you fully comprehend that, you have to figure out what's next. CBDCs, they're going to try, centralized, they're going to continue this path of centralization. And I think that that's what would have happened without Bitcoin. But thank God we have Bitcoin. A couple things in the Zapdos stream here. I got to refresh so I can see the names of these. So, hey, crypto, zapped 1,000 sats. Thank you. Thank you. It says, first time watching something on Zapdos stream. I found you on YouTube, saw you were live. One thing led to another, and now I'm discovering that there are streams on nostr aware platforms. There you go. I love that. Thank you for the sats. Thank you for that comment. And it's nice to have you on Zapdos stream. I honestly think that once people move from this centralized world like YouTube with centralized servers into a platform like Zapdos stream, which is much more friendly to freedom, I guess you'd say, they're never going back, ever. I'm not going to go from nostr to Twitter. I'm not going to go from YouTube or from Zapdos stream back to YouTube. It's just not going to happen. Never going back there. So let's continue this on here because we're not done yet. We're not done yet. I know the show usually ends around an hour, but we're not done yet. So the next part here, and this is something that ties into that comment about Zapdos stream and nostr. I want to bring this up on screen here. So if you've been watching the show here, if you've been watching the Daily Bitcoin Journey regularly, this is something that I've been talking about. And I just said a couple minutes ago, you have to admit that when you're wrong, but you also can take pride when you're right. Or if somebody else, like Max, agrees with you and has the same kind of philosophy about things and is thinking about at a deeper level about something that's coming here. And so what I've been talking about on this channel here is the importance of nostr. It's not just another Twitter. It's not just another Instagram. It's not just another social platform. It's going to be a very big deal. I think it's the new internet, the new way that we're going to be moving towards this new internet, which is nostr. And the one thing I said within Bitcoin and within nostr is that if you look at Bitcoin, it's a peer-to-peer electronic cash, right? So if you think about that, the peer-to-peer part of that, the world that we've been living in here is not peer-to-peer. It's peer to bank, to company, to holding company, to bank, to peer. And within that, there's a middleman. There's several middlemen within that. But they are the people who are responsible for taking on the burden of trust. So if you don't hold up your end of the deal, the middleman comes in and says, okay, you didn't hold up your end of the deal. We're canceling this transaction, whatever that is. They've been the middleman there. They've been the trust factor there because people don't necessarily trust each other. And so with Bitcoin, with nostr, without that middleman, your reputation is going to be the key there. If you're going to be transacting in Bitcoin, if you're going to be buying and selling things in Bitcoin, you're going to have a positive reputation from people within Nostr and within the new internet here. And I know it sounds kind of crazy just because we're so early with this whole thing, but you're not late to it. In fact, if you signed up for Nostr today, you're way ahead of like, think about how many people own Bitcoin. The people on Nostr would be a fraction of that. So if this is all kind of new to you and you don't really understand what I'm saying here and feel like it's too late, it's not. But you should be getting onto Nostr this week. You should start interacting on there. You should start building up your reputation. Because if you are somebody who wants to be living in a Bitcoin world and a Bitcoin standard, your reputation online with your private key through Nostr is going to be paramount. Very important. And so this is a guy named Max Webster. And I actually listened to him on a podcast a little while ago. He was on The Last Trade. And he was talking about Nostr. And he's a very, very smart guy. He talks 100 miles per minute, but you can tell that he knows what's going on. He went through the Silicon Valley stuff. He's been very successful in seeing things before they happen. And so this is what he posted yesterday on Nostr. So he wrote an essay called Nostr is Identity for the Internet. And so I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but if you actually read the article that he wrote, he talks about that exact same thing that I was saying. The internet needs user-owned identity and an associated open data layer. I'm more convinced than ever that Nostr will win. In my mind, Nostr will follow a straightforward trajectory, first solving discovery reputation problems for Bitcoiners, then for early tech adopters, and finally for the mainstream. So he goes through all these different things of how you can, what you can use to improve your reputation online. So there's the payment wallets, there's Primal, Mutiny, Alby, there's eCash, all these things. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but essentially what he's saying is, so this is the last part. Of course, the most exciting category of all is the unexpected wave of unimaginable apps that will eventually emerge. Ultimately, user-owned identity and open data will lead to online trust, which is beautiful and a deflationary force, capable of disrupting predatory marketplace middlemen and shifting the balance from financial to social capital, i.e., a more humane world. So very interesting because, like I said, this guy's way ahead of his time in terms of Nostr, in terms of the capabilities of Nostr and what's being built on there. But he's saying the exact same thing. Nostr is going to be your identity for everything that you do. If you want to operate in this world, if you're going to go the Bitcoin route, if you're going to go the freedom route, if you're going to start buying and selling items and services from other Bitcoiners, your reputation is going to be important because there's no middleman there that has the trust for you. You have to be that trust. And if somebody doesn't trust you, they're not going to interact with you. So the best time to be focused on this, the best time to be starting this is today. And by the time we get from the early adopters to the tech phase to the mainstream, you're going to be very well positioned there. So there you go. That is my, I'm not going to say it, but I'm glad that I'm proud that I align with such a smart and intelligent guy like Max on that, because I see it the exact same way. So there you go. What else we got going on here? We got, oh, there we go. Adrian over in Zap.stream. Hi, George, just switched over. There you go. Love that. And the cool thing about Zap.stream is you can also zap other people on there. So I see that Zombie got a zap. First comment, take me to church. There you go. My Path to Fire says reputation like in the past, people will behave better. Yes. That's the problem with the old world that we live in, the current world that we live in, is that you can do whatever you want on the internet. You can be as much of a dickhead as you want to be in Uber or in Airbnb or on Twitter, whatever it is, and you can always just spin up a new account. And that's fine. That works fine when there's trusted middlemen in between there for those transactions. You're paying for that though. But with Nostr, you can't do that. You can't just spin up a new private key. You could, but you're going to lose your reputation from your old one. So it's just time. It's time. With Bitcoin, time is most important. With Nostr, time is most important. Proof of work. So either way, that's what you should be working towards, is getting onto Nostr. You can very easily set up a Primal account or a Damus account. Start fooling around on there. You can give me a follow. And one thing I would say is, if there are people that watch the show that follow me on Nostr, just shoot me a DM on there, because I have no idea. I don't look at the people who follow me. Damus doesn't show notifications for people when they follow you. And a lot of times people use different names on YouTube versus Nostr. And so I have no idea who's who on there. So anyways, I would appreciate that. If you are following me, you can find my NPub under the video here, and just shoot me a DM saying, watched your video today. It brought me to Nostr. Keeps me going. Letha says, Coinbase integrated the Lightning Network. Good for them. Took them long enough, but good to see nonetheless. Okay, so we watched the video, we talked about the Nostr stuff, we talked about the importance of all that. And kind of the theme of today's show is the end of centralization. We're moving from a centralized world into a decentralized world. And that's going to happen through applications like Nostr, which isn't decentralized, but it's much more decentralized than Twitter would be, or YouTube. Censorship resistant is a better term for Nostr. But then you look at the corporate structure, and my theory is that nobody's going to have a boss. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it's not going to look the same. You're not going to go to work every day. You're going to have maybe 10 different bosses. You do work, they're going to pay you in Bitcoin. We're going to move away from this corporate centralized structure of showing up, working, doing some sort of work all day, getting paid every 2 weeks. That's gone. It's gone. It's not gone. It's still here, obviously, but we're moving away from it slowly. And we're moving into a world where you get paid based on the work that you do. You get paid based on the value that you add to the world, not just for fucking showing up and playing crosswords all day. It's going to change. The other part of that is the news. If you look at the news 10 years ago, there's like, or longer than that, but there was like 10 channels, and that's all people would watch. You turn on the evening news, that's where you'd get all your information from. But the internet and the new internet, the Nostr world, is changing that. And then you look at Google, very centralized application. Have you been on Google lately? It's fucking dog shit. You can't find anything on there. It's all ads. It's nonsense. So we're moving. But that was the thing for a while. Anytime you wanted to find information, you go to Google. Google was going to have it for you. But now you go on, and even with the news, so you have 100 different news channels now. You have channels like this on YouTube, on Zap.stream, talking about the same stuff in a very unbiased way, because we're not being funded by the puppet masters, right? Decentralized. And then you look at the Google, and now we're moving into a world where Nostr, I use Nostr much more than Google. If I actually want some information from people, some valuable, some quality information, I go to Nostr. And if somebody gives me really good information, I pay them for that. And they're not collecting my data. So that's some examples there. And Bitcoin is obviously wrapped up in that. It's going to facilitate all of this. But when you understand that we're moving from the centralized world to a decentralized world without any middlemen there, you have to focus on what that means to you. And so it's going to be different for everybody. Maybe that means that you start looking for other work. Maybe you start doing things in the morning and at night and building up your reputation, building up your experience for when that time comes. But it's going to be different for everybody. So this is the last piece here. And so with all that in mind, I also want you to think about the governments. And there was a comment here. Oh, I forgot to show this last night, or I saw this last night. A coal mining company just announced that it's mining Bitcoin to monetize unused electricity, and they're holding 425 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. I saw that on Nostr last night. I shared it. I forgot to mention it, but thank you for bringing that up because that's important. That's cool. All this stuff is happening, whether people fully understand or not. This is a perfect example of that. Bodhi, good morning, my friend. Late, but that's okay. We got a late show today. Where was that comment in here? Here we go. We will have no politicians in the future. Look at countries like Lebanon. They are doing fine without a centralized figure. This is our future. So I agree with that. And it's not because, you know, something's going to happen. It's not going to be one event that's going to cause that. People are just losing interest. People are losing interest in the governments and what they're doing, and they're just going to stop paying attention to them. And everything's based on attention, right? So I want to end the show with this video. It's about 2 or 3 minutes long, I think. But it talks about the governments and how hard it's going to be for them to deal with Bitcoiners. And the harder it is for the centralized entities to deal with Bitcoiners, the better it is. The faster we move into decentralization. So let's check this out. This was from the episode from Friday night of Why Are We Bullish with Adam O'Brien, which is the guy from Bitcoin Well, Matt Hill, which is the guy from Start9, and Danny Bayer. So this is Adam O'Brien talking about how difficult the governments, how big of a problem Bitcoin really is for governments. Further clarifying and further growing further conviction into moving into this decentralized world. So let's take a look here. Oh, I got that on the wrong thing. Let's take a listen. No. Okay.
And then I'll gracefully exit. I think it'll be so difficult to tax sovereign Bitcoiners. Like it's just designed in such a way. Bitcoin, I mean, is designed in such a way that when you hold Bitcoin in your self-custody and you are abiding by, you know, reasonable, even legal privacy policies, it's just like you're able to leave. And this is kind of back to, you know, what I said about governments, Bitcoin putting governments into competition with each other. The US is without a doubt going to be the most draconian in their policies towards Bitcoin. They've shown their hand now. We know what they want to do. We know they don't want privacy. And so Bitcoiners right now need to start investigating and searching for jurisdictions that are going to be better. And then you pack up your books with your words highlighted and go. And it's like, it's just so simple. And once again, you know, the government thinks that, and I suppose we are actively, we as a society, actively running towards fake Bitcoin, actively running towards Bitcoin in someone else's wallet, Bitcoin in some like tax sheltered ETF vehicle, which are obviously very dangerous when we're talking about, you know, these things. But the fact that we can look at an asset, a single digital asset, and think, if I get on a plane, this asset has different has different taxes, or that the next jurisdiction will take the same exact fungible asset and treat it differently, just goes to show what a clown world we are living in. And I think putting governments into competition with each other is Bitcoin's #1 superpower, in that we can collectively look at and I mean, frankly, it's not unlikely that Bitcoiners just buy countries one day. We're going to be able to actually have country founding wealth, because as this level of draconian, you know, fiat nonsense trickles in and throughout the ecosystems, countries are going to fail. Dollars are going to fail. It's not even a matter of if, it's a matter of when at this point. And as that occurs, the Bitcoin in your self-custody wallet will be so valuable and have so much purchasing power that, like, you know, talking about like Bitcoin citadels, like that's what it is. It's like, okay, there's 100 of us, you know, let's each pitch X number of Bitcoin and we own the country now. And there's no, you know, consequences for owning Bitcoin. And watch what happens. Watch the prosperity, watch the abundance that floods into the country. There is a small project on an island outside of Honduras in the island called Roatan. The project is called Prospera, and they're like setting up, you know, a sovereign jurisdiction to have like this kind of testing, I guess, this kind of abundance. They're like a magnet for people that provide value, and I think that's a very bullish thing. So yeah, that's my take on things.
Adam, before you go, I gotta ask: do you want to go halfsies on Greece? I heard it's nice.
I'm in, man. I'm in. I kind of want to split it with Matt. Sounds like we could have a good thing going here.
Oh yeah. Another thing we've been talking about on the show the last little while is how hard it's going to be, how hard it is for them to confiscate your Bitcoin, right? And they're laughing at things there, and I know that they actually, Adam clearly means it. I mean, he's fully invested into Bitcoin through and through, but they're laughing about this stuff like it might not happen. Like, think about it. Think about what's happening, and I talked about this on yesterday's show. We're living through this flip here where the fiat dollar continues to go down, Bitcoin continues to go up. Everything is going to fall in comparison to Bitcoin. And so if you are holding any sort of balance of Bitcoin right now, you're going to have a ton of wealth and influence in the future. And I know that we're early and it's hard to really wrap your head around that, but he's absolutely right at what's going to happen here. If the governments can't tax your Bitcoin, if they can't take your Bitcoin, and people start to realize that, nobody knows this right now. Nobody understands that because all they've heard is through news articles and watching the news of how Bitcoin works and what it's all about. If you understand exactly what's happening here, this flip is going to happen. It has to. And so we're moving from the centralized world of governments being able to tax you 20, 30, 40% for going to work every day. This stuff didn't exist 100 years ago. This is not how humans were meant to live. It's not. But we're fish that were born into this water, and we've lived through it. Thankfully, we have Bitcoin now, because without Bitcoin, we'd be in a lot of trouble between the big corps, between the governments, between the AI, the robotics. Without Bitcoin, we would be in a ton of shit right now. But Bitcoin is going to move us slowly, and every aspect of society, every aspect of life is going to decentralize. And the more you can understand that, the better you can understand that, the better you can position yourself for that world. So that's how I want to end the show today. Big shout out to everybody over on zap.stream, and big shout out to Hey Crypto. First day on zap.stream, zapped 1,000 sats. Gotta love that. My balance is getting low on here, so I got to top that up. Hopefully it didn't get cut off yet. Zombie says, getting off Twitter helped me stop giving them attention. Yes. Just stop. That's the thing that you can do, is just stop giving them attention. Instead of watching Netflix at night, turn on a YouTube show talking about Bitcoin, or learn some history about money, or go outside and play with your dog, whatever that is. Go golfing, go for a walk. Stop giving them your attention in every way that you can, every single day. Move towards that. My Path to Fire says, I would just say those in power won't give it up easily. Yes. And that's kind of been the theme of the shows the last little while, is like, we have to be ready for what's coming. You have to prepare for this. And actually that ties into how I'm going to leave this show today. So it is Tuesday. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the show here, we've been doing this every single morning since November. Missed a few, went to Mexico for a week. But other than that, been very consistent. This week, however, I'm taking a little bit of not a break, but we're going on the road, and I'm going to bring my stuff, but I probably won't be in a position where I can do a show every day. I'm going to do a show, I think at least one show for the Living in the Future. But other than that, this is going to be the last show on YouTube this week. So the reason I want to do that too, and I could probably find ways to make it work if I wanted to, but as Ballsy Golf says here, great show today, going to take me all day to digest this info. It's important to just take a step back sometimes and digest. And instead of watching as many different YouTube shows and listening to as many different conversations as you can, you have to just take a minute and implement some things. You know, whether that is getting a one-page document for your inheritance stuff with Bitcoin, whether that's taking the time to order a steel plate, whether that's actually putting your backup phrase on the steel plate. You have to take some time off and actually do this stuff instead of just thinking about it. So that's my ask of you this week is, you know, first thing, if you want to support the show, if you want to check out some shows later this week, consider checking out the Living in the Future tier. You get 7 days for free. After that is $5 a month. And I think that if you asked anybody in that group, it's much more value than that for the things we talk about, the things we're organizing, and just having a network of Bitcoiners there to support you and to support them. That's what this whole thing is about. So do what you need to do. Take some time here instead of 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. watching the show. Do some stuff that you've been wanting to do, thinking about doing, but it's actually time to do it. So that's the two things I would say. Catch up on whatever you need to do. Start cleaning up your house a little bit in terms of your Bitcoin stuff, and consider joining the Living in the Future show because I'm going to do at least one more show on there this week. So there you have it, folks. Bitcoin and Clyde says, buy Bitcoin and build communities. It's exactly what we're trying to do here. Buy Bitcoin, build communities, and start earning Bitcoin. That's pretty much, and protect your Bitcoin. That's pretty much what Living in the Future focuses on there. So with that, I appreciate everybody very much for being here, for joining in the live chat, for making this show, making it so easy for me to get up in the morning. Because you always have to ask yourself why you're doing things. And if you don't have a why, then it's going to be very difficult to do them. And it's very difficult to show up and talk for an hour and 22 minutes if you don't have a why, without a script, without a fucking teleprompter. So have yourselves a great week. Consider joining the Living in the Future if you want to support the show and if you want to be part of that community. You can find the information in the link or in the description below. There's a link right beside Living in the Future. And so hopefully we'll see you there this week. We're going to be in touch with them and see what's going on. But if not, I understand totally. And I appreciate you still for being here very much, even on YouTube, especially those on the Zapdos stream. So have yourselves a great day. Have yourselves a great week. And for some of you guys, we'll see you in May in the next, 5 days. So that's it. Have a great day. Have a great week. And we'll see you sometime.